3v3, and he still has that lockdown, but you haven't cleared out Stacks. You haven't cleared out Stacks. The Prowler in his lap.
Getting stuck.
Stacks on the swing. Enzo cleans
He got
up.
off! He got off!
No way! Enzo not back up yet. Alfier holding it. Stacks on the swing. Alfier falls, but it's still a 1v1. Can Mystic do it? 87 HP. The flash is up top, and no! The Red Bull clutch for DRX.
Unfortunately, in my opinion, I think that it was small mistakes and small misplays that ended up losing Fnatic their chance at winning champs this year. Now, before we get started, I just want to say that I am a huge Fnatic fan. A lot of respect for Boaster and the rest of the team. You see, like, occasionally in my videos, you see like these funny annotations come up on the top of the screen. Boaster's one of them. A lot of respect for him and the work that he does as an IGL and how he runs the team. And overall, I think the team is they're just great. I love them. They're a great team, and I actually wanted them to win this whole event, either them or Optic. They're my two picks, but unfortunately they lost, right? But I think that we can use this map against DRX as an example as to why small mistakes can end up leading into bigger problems in like later in the game, right? So let's say, for example, you and your teammate are playing a crossfire on site and like a 2v2 clutch, and you guys die, right? You guys lose, right? A lot of time in ranked or in lower tier competitive play, you'll hear things like, oh, can we stop defaulting? Or, oh, can we just hit B? Can we just do this? Can we just do that? When in reality, the game plan worked. The macro worked, right? It's the micro that really screwed over your team, right? And unfortunately, in a game like Valorant, where every decision, every bullet, every movement matters, small mistakes are going to cost you, right? So I'm going to try and keep the hindsight heraldness out of this, but I'm going to explain these rounds and go piece by piece, like going, talk about the rounds and show how like them defaulting or them hitting a site or them doing something wasn't the issue, but rather it's something small that they did later in the round that ended up costing them. So with that out of the way, we're going to be starting off with round 20. Oh, and by the way, DRX played really well too. I don't want to discredit them for their win. They really beat Fnatic. They beat Fnatic in this map, and they really took it home on Fracture, the next map, right? So starting off, round 21, Fnatic are deciding to do like a sort of a passive default. This turret watches this, also watches the mid cross, holds a ton of map control for the team. It's sort of like all this, as long as it doesn't get broken, right? So after since there's no early aggression, no KO knife that comes in, Fnatic plan on doing an A pop, right? So you're gonna see the smokes go in, knife go in, Prowler go in, Jet updraft dash top. Jenny, really strong angle to pick up. You see the KO mollies going in, it's chaos. Sova's ulting from spawn, right? When it's all said and done, Fnatic gets stuffed, and it ends up being in a 3v4, okay? Or 3v5, I'm sorry. But just because you're down a couple men doesn't mean that the round is unwinnable, right? So you see KO throw a flash, try and get some info, maybe stop them a little bit from pushing. Knife goes in to get a little bit of information, tags the KO. But now the three members of Fnatic are kind of left up. They have a tough task ahead of them, right? They kind of have to work 3 kills around the map, and it's not easy. So I think KO just died in hell too, so that helps a lot, right? But now these three are free to do whatever they want. They can go re-clear spawn, they can go re-clear B, right? They can do whatever they want. If they stick together, they have a semi-decent chance of winning this round. They have a Killjoy lockdown, KO knife, flash, Prowler, eye, lots of pieces, a lot of strong utility pieces that can still win the round. So you're gonna see, looks like they're gonna try and go up mid, walking up, keeping it quiet. DRX are letting Fnatic make the next move. They don't want to give them an extra kill. An extra kill would be devastating, putting them at the disadvantage, right? So Alfier recognizes that somebody could be holding towards spawn, swings out, tries to make space for his team so they're not running into a big crossfire from the guy's site. Now this right here, this is what cost them the round. Now, unfortunately, you'll see KO and Fade, Mystic and Enzo, they're running up the site, right? Alfier swing spawn, like I said, make space so that it'll die to a crossfire. Now, if you look at the time, they only have 6, 5, 4. Enzo, I believe, is planning the spike. He needs to stick this. If he does not stick this spike, they will lose the round. There's just no more time left in the round, right? Stacks only has 10 HP. Alfier just needs to protect Enzo from getting killed so they can get the spike down, right? So this guy swings out, and unfortunately he gets off, and they end up losing this round. Now, had they not have done that, they stuck the plant and gotten this kill, they're in a 2 versus 2 with, like I said, a Killjoy lockdown, alarm bot, Molly, potentially a haunt coming later, maybe if it gets down to the wire, but and a turret still up in market. Like, there's still a lot of pieces of utility for them to win this round. So as you can see, the smallest mistake of just not sticking the plant cost them this round. Like, it's crazy, right? But regardless, all the steps that it took them to get there were also really nice, right? The swing into spawn, the recognition that mid was their gap, right? They ran up mid, and then yeah, because what is it? DRX aren't really running a Sentinel comp, so they figured maybe mid could be their opening, and they recognized it. They did all the right plays to get to this point. So unfortunately, a small mistake, and that's small mistake number 1. So let's go watch small mistake number 2. Okay, so in the very next round, what ends up losing Fnatic this one is just kind of a poor crossfire, right? So you're going to see. They start off in a 4-1 default. Again, Killjoy's turret's been getting out of value, ends up getting broken, right? So they know that DRX is pushed up into this point, right? They had B main. So what's Fnatic's response? Well, they're just going to hold, call their bluff. They're probably not going to walk out of B main, right? Fnatic's just chilling out, still waiting to see if they're going to do anything. They have a smoke mids to not deny information for anyone peeking market. They're like, okay, well, they pushed up this far. Jett probably has an op. We want to be really careful peeking this angle, right? We don't want to overextend. She could be peeking out, right? That's why we're jump spotting and spawn, all that stuff. So first order of action, they didn't push up A main, they didn't push up mid, they pushed up B main. Before we do anything, we need to push this Jett back, right? She's the only one that could hold space for their team. So they decide, let's make sure this is clear. Let's use a Prowler. I think they're going to use a Prowler in a second, if maybe a Haunt or something. But as you can see, again, DRX aren't running a Sentinel comp, so if they want to, their defense is going to be pretty poor. Like, DRX is spread out across the map, right? They got 3 over here, 2 here, right? So without a Sentinel, you need to have somebody holding this mid spot, meaning their defense is kind of thinned out across the map, right? So eventually a Fnatic, they're like, okay, well, they didn't take mid. Let's try and go for maybe a mid split, right? I mean, I don't know what the comments are, but I'm just calling it how I see it, right? So Jett smoke for spawn, or Omen smoke for spawn, Omen smoke, kind of a late Killjoy ultimate. But as you can see, Boaster looked through the smoke, whiffs on the guy CT, ends up killing the guy in KO. A bunch of trades are going down, a bunch of trades. Got the Killjoy Molly going in, Buzz is still backside with an operator, Fade C's came in. Again, it's hard to keep up with the game when it's moving this quick. So Fnatic did a B split. They're on site. Now it's up to, what is it, Mystic and Enzo to try and figure out how they're going to win this round. Now, there's a lot of strong crossfires, especially on the B side, right? You could play, someone could play behind, what is it? They could play behind default, and the guy plays backside. You could put a guy here and a guy under stairs maybe. But this backside area is arguably the strongest part of the site, right? Playing back here because you can bob and weave, you can peek in and out, right? You can. There's a lot of strong cover ground in here. Anywhere else is a lot harder to play, and usually anyone playing in this area is usually the person taking first contact, and the person backside is usually the one swinging out, right? So you're gonna see Mako's going in for the retake. He's got 2 stars, right? Tries to swing out, find a timing on the guy maybe. Puts a couple good stars. So what he decides to do is try and pull anybody, trying to peek this angle and try and make it awkward, right? So he can't get double swung. Just saw Astra here, tries to punish her if she's still in this area. So then he tries to swing out, maybe try and find her teammate, right? And try and take a 1v1 during that time. But because this is a suck and not a smoke, you could still sort of play back here, right? I'm pretty sure the suck doesn't cover all the way back to the wall. You can still keep your back up against it. And then your KO would watch stairs. And then lane, you could just kind of keep open, right? You don't really have to watch lane, because in order to go lane, you have to jump down. I know there's some crazy tech, like you can get on that box without making any sounds, but that's just kind of unlikely, right? You can just jiggle that every now and then if you wanted to. But this crossfire that Mystic and Enzo have set up isn't really the best, right? It's okay, right? But Mako's peeking out, expects Asher to be still backside, right? Because it's, like I mentioned, it's a strong position. But realizes he's not back there and sees a gun. Now it's kind of unlucky, I'm not gonna lie, but because this is a kind of a poor crossfire, you have a guy watching stairs from this way and a guy playing default watching lane. I mean, no one's really swinging off each other, right? So he gets the headshot, and yeah, it just ends up winning the round. So now that's 2 rounds back to back where 2 small mistakes have cost Fnatic 2 big rounds, right? We got the first round, the guy didn't stick the spike. The guy didn't stick the spike, and then you see a bad crossfire in the second round. So that's 2 back-to-back rounds. Again, they were up 11-9. Now it's 11-11. That's tied game. Economy's still going strong, but again, they cannot be giving up rounds like these. But like I said, small mistakes will cost you. Let's go to the next round. All right, for this next round, we're going to see, again, a similar setup. Killjoy Tora watches this. Smoke goes mid. Again, pretty good denial of information. Nobody can really peek up mid. Can't really peek B or peek walk down catwalk without getting spotted by the turret. And the Prowler catches anybody in A main. So technically Fnatic has all of this map control. They have all of this kind of like this. I don't know, somebody could have walked back in A main, but I don't know what Boaster's angle looks like, but they have a ton of map control. They know DRX isn't really pushed up anywhere, allowing them to sort of do whatever they want. They can poke and prod and catwalk, maybe try and find a kill, bait out some utility, right? And that's what it looks like is about to happen, right? So they throw a smoke here to try and create pressure on this KO. KO might use some utility, might burn a molly if he hadn't already, maybe a knife to get info, some flashes, but looks like Boaster's calling more of like a B split maybe, or like a mid push, because they just created all this pressure towards Cat, maybe baited a rotate over, right? And this turret hasn't gone off yet, right? So they haven't pushed up B main. Or maybe not. Maybe decides to apply pressure in mid as well. There's a CT smoke as well. Okay, so they applied pressure catwalk, apply pressure mid, and then decide to double back all the way towards A because Boaster still had A main, and then, right, they go through catwalk. Now, again, this is where things get a little hectic, right? Guy swings out of the smoke, trades are going out, Asher and Jet are on site, they kind of have to get theirs. They have to come up big for the team. Mako's obviously, he's a crazy controller player. He did great, got his. Again, so now we're in a 2 versus 2, right? Stacks coming from catwalk. They know the Sova Sword's the heaven side, and this turret watches, I believe, the catwalk out, right? And Mystic is holding heaven, and Killjoy, I believe, is going to be holding door in just a second, or like breaking utility, right? So they hear the drone, Alfire breaks it, Arrow's going to come out in a second, I believe, or Haunt, whatever. Yeah, both of them. Okay. So again, a pretty decent crossfire. So we have a guy Jenny, right? We have a guy on Jenny and a guy Dice. This door angle is kind of hard to, it's hard if you're both coming from door to clear somebody who's swinging from Dice, but also avoid someone who's swinging from generator, right? It's because this Killjoy can bob and weave behind this thing, and this is a really powerful position if you're the planner, like the attacking team, right? So let's rewind this just a smidge. KO throws a flash up too, which is really, you know, he attracts the attention, right? So he takes first contact, throws a flash up, swings, gets a kill, gets a trade on Zest. Or Zest gets a trade, I'm sorry, then Alfier gets a trade on Stacks. 1v1 situation. So tap spike, right? Now, this is kind of like an internal timer sort of thing, right? So like the guy just tapped the spike, right? And you don't see him yet, right? He hasn't gotten off it yet. Like from our POV, we could see that Zest is coming up this right side, right? But Alfier doesn't know that. So Sova just tapped spike. He either could be in this area or walking up this right side, right? Only those two things. So the longer, the wider that Alfire swings on the spike, right, the less and less chance of him being on the spike arc, right? Because you're going to see him. You're going to see his cape. You're going to see his arrows. You're going to see something. You're going to see a part of Sova if he's still on the spike, right? So if you don't see Sova by this point, eventually you have to consider that he's gotten off and gone to this right side, right? Especially with the spike is planted, I'm pretty sure you would be able to see Sova at some point, right? But or maybe not, but regardless, I still think the internal timing just wasn't there, right? At some point you have to consider that someone would be coming around this right, or the Sova could be coming around that right side. So again, a 1v1 clutch, a guy who didn't stick to the plant, a bad crossfire. That's 3 rounds now that have gone to DRX because of small mistakes from Fnatic. And again, this one might not even be considered a mistake. It's just a clutch. He lost a clutch, right? I'm trying to make a case that small things, a 1v1, a non-stuck plant, a bad crossfire can put you guys in bad positions. And everything they've done so far is perfect. The mid-rounding has been great. The execs have been nice. The trading's been great. But at the end of the day, you can't have small mistakes. It sucks, right? But I got one more round to show you, and then we'll be done. So, okay, so Fnatic end up pushing overtime, and this is their round. They're on defense this round. Okay, so as you can see, we have a pretty traditional Killjoy turret setup. Turret spots lane, Molly's to clog up the entrance, or the walkout, I guess. Alarm bottom mid, Boaster playing towards CT, and then we have Jet, KO, and Fade over towards A. The KO and Fade can sort of set up their Jet. They can clog up all their utility on Catwalk here, Molly, C's, all that jazz, right? And then Derke could peek out A main for early information. Pretty decent setup. And they have a ton of stalling power towards B. Again, Ascent is a very turtley map with a lot of angles that are hard to clear, so you usually want to turtle up on this map. So as you can see, DRX, they're getting ready maybe to try to do like a B fake, maybe with a drone, maybe apply pressure B and then go to a fast A. With this triple initiator comp, your offense is going to be a lot easier and you can sort of do things like this. But as you can see, Fnatic aren't biting. I think Enzo maybe left for like a second, but he's back. Turns out they're going to run into the 3-man stack over towards A. So let's see what it looks like. Flash over the top, Haunt on top, so the flash is supposed to protect the Haunt. Jet dashes in. Again, really good util coming out from DRX. Derke does a really good job of anchoring. He's bobbing and weaving, he's dashing in and out. I don't even know how Enzo got those 2 kills, but regardless, we end up being in a 3v2. Now, when you're retaking on A, you want to make sure that you're coming from 1, the door, 2, from heaven. I've explained this in previous videos, but you want to make sure that you're pinching the site on these retakes. If you're all funneling out a tree, you're just going to run into crossfires on dice, on hell, A main, right? It's a bad time. If you all come out of heaven, you have to drop down. Again, not a good time. But if you pinch the site, it's a lot better, right? Now, unfortunately, Boaster's coming in through tree, and keep in mind, Boaster's a really smart guy. He's IGLing, he's the brains of this team, and there's a lot on his shoulders right now. He's in a high pressure situation. His team is in overtime on a map that they should have, in my opinion, kind of should have won. But he's trying to keep everyone together, making sure everyone's on the same page, right? They should know the door is closed, right? But when Boaster comes out of tree, he's completely oblivious to the fact that somebody could have walked up catwalk, right? He's staring at a wall right now. There's just a wall right here, right? But again, because Boaster's the IGL, he has a lot more on his plate than his other players would, right? So, again, this is just a small mistake that cost them a pivotal round. It sucks. It's just Valorant, right? It sucks. And even in overtime, you see Boaster, he bought, I think, half shield, right? Instead of full shield in overtime, in the future rounds or whatever. Even in this round, I think he had half shield. But that's not the point. Again, he has a lot on his plate, a lot to think about as an IGL, and it's hard to do it all. It's hard. But regardless, Alpha Air, Jet, and a 1v1. Again, we're down to a 1v1. These can go either way. Kind of like almost like 50-50, right? If someone lands a nice shot, they win the round. But again, it's not easy to win. So yeah, again, it comes down to a 1v1, really close round. But you know how the story goes. Unfortunately, Fnatic end up losing this map and end up losing on Fracture, right? You hate to see it. You don't like to see it. I really wanted Fnatic to win, and I wanted to see Boaster win a trophy, but I'm sure he will eventually, right? But yeah, in this video, this isn't supposed to like bash Fnatic. This isn't supposed to bash anybody. It's supposed to be a learning lesson for you guys to see that everything in Valorant matters. Every small movement, every small decision that you make can end up creating a big impact. Every small mistake, every small decision, every bullet, every piece of utility, it matters, right? So again, take this as a learning lesson and apply this to your competitive games, your ranked games. So when somebody says, well, this isn't working, we needed to try something else. Well, it's like, well, it's not necessarily that it isn't working. It's just that we're not executing the micro part of the game. The macro's fine, but the micro wasn't executed properly. So that being said, hopefully you guys learned something from this. I know I did, and I'll catch you guys in a future video. Take care.